All right. Let's see what we got going on here. How's it going, Boris? Control Byte? Yeah, we're hanging out. We're not working too hard tonight. I think the wife is out at a book club, and then she's going to come home and we're going to hang out. I've been making her watch old movies from the early 2000s that, well, old, like in that she hasn't seen them. But the one we were watching last night was Ready to Rumble. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that, but she's getting to see about the story of the king getting betrayed and then coming back for his crown. Well, her and I were both out of high school by then, but 2000s was still a pretty long time ago. Quarter of a century ago, right? Well, next year. Well, in a few months. Yeah. The king! Crown us, king, crown us! Yeah, I graduated in 99, so I get it. I actually joined the Army in 99 too. U.S. Army anyways. So what are we looking at here? So what we got up here, we're talking about like job skills, right? We want to job skills. Get into the industry. And what I did was I went and downloaded the Linux Plus, because some people I know were talking about going and getting it. I went and downloaded the Linux Plus CompTIA exam objectives. I also have the Security Plus one. But the CompTIA one for Linux Plus, I have it sitting here, and I was just going to have us start talking about some of the different pieces. I don't know that Linux Plus is worth it to everybody. I don't have any of the Linux certs that are out there. I just kind of been doing it for forever now, you know. Time forgotten. I've been doing it. So I don't have any of the certs, but one of the things I tell you guys about taking certs is whether or not the cert itself is even something you want to take, the body of knowledge around the cert is still very valuable to you. So, Popcorn, we're just starting. I actually just started, I don't know, 3 minutes ago or so, and we're just kind of sitting here, and again, not working too hard. I'm waiting for the wife to get home. But we were going to sit here and we were going to go through some of these directories. So we'll clear the screen up and CD down into boot. And okay, there's no boot on this box. Well, there's no boot on this box because this box actually boots in a non-standard way. But if I jump over to like a normal system and I CD over to /boot, and then I do a few things. I do a df-h dot to see where it's mounted. It's got its own mount point. And then I do having its own mount point is interesting and important for security reasons. I might do a mount grep-i for /boot to see what the mounted boot parameters are. And that may be different than other things that I have here, right? Give me 1 second real quick, guys. I need some water. Hold on. Started talking and I got like acid reflux, so give me a second here. All right, I'm back. I'm sitting back down. All right. So this boot directory is on its own, and this probably got carved off on its own because of something like maybe, hey, thanks for that, Control Byte. You could use your Prime anywhere, but your
Hoppity, Linux is scholarly.
I appreciate it. Yeah, so I appreciate that. You could use those anywhere, but if you guys have Primes and want to use them here, you're always welcome to. Plus, then you get to avoid the commercials, right? All those ads and stuff that get dropped in on streams, you know. But anyways, let me show you guys. A lot of times, boot will be on its own for security reasons. Maybe you've got a CIS or a STIG benchmark test where the best practice says that you'll have that on its own. So typically that is going to be out on its own file system. You'll also notice that it's using XFS. I have XFS instead of ext4, which are the two most common types you're probably going to run into in the industry. You may run into some other types on your base OSs, but I'll tell you most of the time it's ext4 or XFS. But anyway, so I can see this information about here. I can see what's in here, ls-l in boot. And very quickly I see a few things. Let's go ahead and take that L off of there. And let's just do an ls. And there's a few things about this. Does anybody know what each of these are? The init RAM FS and the VM Linux. These are actually mentioned over here. What does it mean to have an init RAM FS and an init RD image and a VM Linux? What are those? And then, why are there 5 of them, right? More. Yeah, so these are the actual kernel instances right here that my system can boot to. These are my different kernels. So this system is actually in breach of a typical security protocol. Normally, we try to keep at least just 2. The one that we've booted to and one back. And the one that I'm booted to, uname -r, right? And the one my system wants to boot to is here. The one that it's set to boot to is right there. So I sometimes show you guys this when you're in the Red Hat world. So I'm on a CentOS 7 box, but Grubby's been around a long time. The .img up here. So initram fs is where your system, when your kernel first comes up, it actually runs the initram fs as it does its startup, and then it hands off. So the kernel needs the initram fs to start. After it starts on that base image, it moves all of its mount points over to the actual the actual root mount point over here. So initram fs comes up before you have your main file systems mounted. That's what the initram fs.img is. The name difference is just the name difference between systems. The name here, it's nice because it's got the same kernel image name. Like if I said, hey guys, we're gonna sort all 5 of the all of these things out by the 5 different ones, pretty much every one of you could sort pretty quickly and go, well Scott, look, it's real easy. This one goes with this one, goes with this one, because the numbering's the same, right? So that's kind of a nice thing. Over here they're showing just a generic one without that convention applied. You won't always have that convention applied either, but typically on most modern enterprise level Linux systems, you'll have this. You'll have the kernel version, which is the same as your uname-r, and you'll have your kernel architecture, which is the same thing as uname-m, right? And those will typically be denoted by the system that we're on. All right, so we're down in boot, and we're looking at these things, and then you also have grub and grub2, but grub2 is the more common, which is the Grand Unified Bootloader. So we cd down into grub, and in here we get typically like a grub.cfg. And a grub.cfg can be kind of a long file, but it's a file that goes ahead and as the system boots, it tells the system what the menu entries are for how it's going to boot. And there would be a menu entry for this one. There would be a menu entry for this. And then down here is the kernel command line, as it's called, right here. This is how the system's actually called right here. Yep, right here. So, and then you see the initram fs and all these kind of things. So you see all these things that happen as the system comes up, and you can modify these. You can go in and you can modify your grub and do whatever you want in there. However, most of us nowadays, you've got this tool Grubby, and Grubby will go and build all that stuff for you. So honestly, the way most of this works in the industry, most of like our Linux engineering, like if you said, hey Scott, go build me a set of new servers, I would probably stand up a server. I would get it to where I want it to be, make it a golden image, and this grub stuff would never be touched again until we patch the server in some way. Or if we were going with a really modern way where we don't even patch the server anymore, we just have a build pipeline to build a new server, you would never be mucking around down here in grub ever. The only time you might mess around in grub as an administrator, right? If you're a Linux engineer, you're probably going to be doing it like systems engineering as you're building systems. But if you're an admin, this is the most important thing. If you're an administrator in a system, it's a cat proc cmd line, or if you do a dmessage and you just go to like head on dmessage. Mine has looped because mine is so old. So don't worry about that, but we'll just look at our proc command line, which is, this is the way the system was called. And let's say somebody added a new driver, or they needed SE Linux to be turned on, or they needed to change the way that just this system or just a few systems had to boot. You can go in and modify just the grub entry for this system, and then this system would boot the way that you wanted it to for whatever, you know, things you find out in the world. Now, again, modern Linux, depending on the type of environment you're in and how virtualized the environment is, typically physical machines, we wouldn't be doing this kind of stuff on. But like virtual machines, we would be able to, you know, just change this up here and then push it to multiple systems, right? If you ever go down in tools like Werewolf that are maintaining clusters, typically, if I do wwctl node list -a and then grep-i for kernel, I would see all the kernel args that are associated to each of my machines. So here's the Kafka kernel arguments that are there, and if I needed to set certain parameters for Kafka, I could do that. If I needed to for Rocky 1 through 10, I could do that as well. Okay, sorry, 1 through 19. About 1 through 9 down here, and then 19's up here. Anyway, so show all that to let you know that, look, we're only in the boot part of this. How about let's go look at some of the other things that are in here. So let's go back to, we'll just go back to this system and CD to proc. What's going on in proc? There's a bunch of stuff going on here. A bunch of number systems. What if I did... If I did this real quick, what if I did... Let's do a ls in here, and then pipe that through like a number line real quick, and then pipe that through a more. What I'm going to do is go right to here, just for funsies, and these were all of my, if you saw earlier, those were all of my numbered, over here, numbers. Anybody know what these numbers are before I get into this? Why did I want to count out the first 100? Why are these important inside of /proc? What do you guys think that, how close do you think that mapping is between, I mean, there's obviously going to be some transient processes that come and go, but what do you guys think the mapping is between those folders here and these processes right here? The number, this is the number of processes that exist. These are the actual files that those process informations and statistics are kept in, right? So check this out here. If I wanted to go look at like 9505, sorry, 905, what did I say, 9505? In here, there's a bunch of information about what this system is currently doing. What this process that's running inside of the system as 905 is doing. I do a ps-ef grep-i for 905. I can see information about this. It's an NFS version 4 callback, right? I can come in here and I can see, typically I can see what kind of, where's the, maybe it's under mounts. I can typically see where it's reaching. I can go to, let's go to more on mounts. In this case, I can typically say, where's the one, you can come in here, and again, I'm going to show you something about this here in a second. You can look at the stack, so you can see what it's doing in the stack. That becomes very important if things start to fail, or you're seeing strange errors, and you need to maybe send out something to a vendor to look at, you know, some specific process that they're running. But I don't see their mapping in here. I don't remember where it is. But the point is, as I show you this, this is not the way you would normally want to look at this. This is not the way going in here and physically looking at this is not as good as learning how to use your tools, right? So maybe you do like a PID stat. I forget if it's like -P905 or something like that, and it'll show you how much processes are, we running right here over the course of time while we're talking here. How much is the process 905 actually using against the system? And right now it looks like it's pretty much chilling. I think we can also use PID stat. Let's do a -H on there. I don't use this tool very much, but whoops. Might have to read a man page for it. Let's man PID stat. And let's look for, I want to see if it'll let me see devices. So this will show us if it's reading or writing from disks, or devices, but disks as it were. So I could use a -D, right? I thought it might have been -D, but I wasn't sure. So let's go -D over here on PID stat. Hey, how's it going, 3D Code Warrior? We are just hanging out here. And now I'm going to look to see if this is doing any read writes to the OS. Now, I want you to think about this. What if this was a new NFS server that I just stood up, and I just connected, 40 clients to it, and those NFS clients are going to boot, and then they're going to pull down some files, and then now, but things aren't working the way that we expect, and, all those systems think they're mounted to something, but I'm over here on the NFS server, and I expect them to be reading and writing from some kind of disk, this NFS process that's on my machine, but it's not, and it never does. And then I go, why is that? Why is that not doing what I think it should, right? So the point is, I wanted to show you guys that this directory exists, and it is doing, the things that this directory is designed to do, but this is not typically the way you would go in and look at. Oh, there's the files, CD to FD. These are all your, if you have file handles open, this would be it. Similar to if you did a LSOF-P and, -I is it? 905, and looked for, no, maybe it's -P. It's -P it is. And if you wanted to see what is the NFS service actually looking at. So that service, that PID 905, is using these file handles, right? The FD is their, this is what the PID is in, if you want to think of it like that. Raw News over on YouTube said, how hard is it for entry level to get a job? I don't know. I haven't been entry level for a long time. But what I can tell you is I've helped people for many years, and I see people get into the field, and it's just one of those things. You just have to keep yourself ready, I think, and I think you just have to keep working on this stuff. I do think you guys can all do this. You just need to spend time with it, right? And all I'm doing right here is just looking through Linux fundamentals from the Linux Plus cert, which again, whether you think the Linux Plus cert is valuable or not, I don't even know or care. But what I can tell you is these things are important to know. Understanding how your system is mounting things and what you're doing and all that. All right, so yeah, so we're hitting that stuff. And hopefully that's a good enough answer. I think you can get into the field. I don't think you need a degree. I don't think you need certs. I think you just need to start to work and get better at this stuff. And then I think the other part of it is you have to work on, I really think you have to work on proving by maybe doing projects or getting a portfolio together so that, once your resume starts to look good because you understand these things and you start putting them on your resume, or some people call it a CV, right? Depending on what part of the country or countries you're in. Once you get past that and get to the interview, you can put something in front of somebody that shows like a project that you've done and shows, that you understand Linux in some way. You do not have to be an expert in all things, but you have to know some things well to even get a shot, right? Some people are like, well, he understands the file systems well. I'll give him a shot, even though this job isn't directly related to file systems, right? And, you got to think about what's interesting to you and what you want to spend time with, all right? What would a portfolio look like outside of work experience? Yeah, Bacchiotomy. So we have. Let me show you guys this. I wasn't necessarily going to pull this stuff up, but I will. So what I would do, like if I were building a portfolio now, like if I was starting brand new, we have a project. We have a big Linux administration course going right now. We're in unit 14 of 16. But let me show you something that's very practical. We have. I'm going to pull something up here. Give me a second here. So I'm going to pull something up. If we go to my Prolog presentations, I have a presentation I gave a while back on monitoring. So I'm going to do monitoring deep dive. This is our project guide. And I'm going to do another one here, which was our monitoring deep dive with labs. So these were the two projects. They are in our Discord. They are right here in our Discord. The reason you didn't see me click on them to open them is because it'll download them. I don't want to re-download them. I already have them. But if you go to our presentations, it's actually the start of the presentation channel. Very start of it. Nope. We got other stuff in here apparently. What? We got all kinds of stuff in here for you to work on. Thought it was called projects. Hold on. We got our networking primer, Socratic, Linux. Oh shoot, is it not even in here? Well, it's not in here apparently. Oh, it's in Prolog projects. Sorry, it's the start of Prolog projects. So if you go to the very beginning of Prolog projects, there. Oh shit. Pretty sure it was the first thing I ever put in here. It was. And this was our monitoring one, right? So when we did monitoring, here's the monitoring deep dive and monitoring deep dive with labs that I'm going to show you. These directly come from, both of these directly come from labs that we have, and it shows you how to get in there. But let me show you guys real quick what this kind of looked like. So I did a little presentation. This presentation is up on YouTube. You can go find it. It's one of my, if you just look for monitoring, I'm pretty sure you'll find it. It's called Monitoring Deep Dive. But anyways, we did this. We talked about monitoring, right? We talked about these labs. And then, as you did the labs with us, we did this like 4 hours on a Saturday one time. As you did it, you came through here and you filled out these questions, right? And I even went in and I added some things in here, and you were supposed to put in your pictures of things that you were doing, which were going to look very similar to mine. But like, how is data flowing in the lab? Where does the data start and how is it collected? Where's the data being aggregated? How are we visualizing the data? And then this showed like a telegraph where we were gathering all of the CPU information, and then we went from very high idle to very low idle because we were maxing out the system. This was actually during a system test. And so you could put this in and say, yeah, in that section where you want me to understand how to monitor, I understand that, you know, we have a place to gather data, we have a place to aggregate the data, and then we have a way to visualize the data, and I can go in there. Now, are you going to probably do this the first day of a company? Oh, God, no. But they want to know that you understand it because they need to know, like, hey, I can give that guy a task later to go and set this up because, you know, we lose some other engineer or whatever. Yeah, so Bacchiotomy, I would just say, I mean, I guess I would say, you know, what you've done. This was looking at that same thing in Grafana. This was looking at some more information, CPU usage, disk usage, memory usage. Yeah, Bacchiotomy, I would just say, you know, on the resume, the resume is very quick, right? It's just a heads up. Typically nowadays it's getting scanned by like AI and HR people who have no effing idea how Ubuntu is related to RHEL, if it even is, and how similar your 20 years of experience on one is to the other. I would posit that somebody who's been using one of those systems for 20 years could probably slide right over to the other with very little extra work, right? But like, I don't think most like HR departments know that. Most of your tech departments don't even know what the Linux guys do. They just think we're down there casting spells and sorcery and stuff, right? So anyways, my point is, your resume can't really show your portfolio. You can't really do that. I mean, you could put like GitHub projects up. I know one of our guys has a really good, so we're doing these labs, right? Or we're doing this project, and one of our guys is doing a really nice write-up of like, as he's going through and doing all of these and doing all these questions and stuff, he's going through and keeping his notes in like a markdown on the web page. So that for him, is going to be very valuable when somebody says, well, can you show me this? And he's like, yeah, actually I have a link right here. We can pull it up right now if you want. And then, but the main thing, this is what I always tell people, the main number one thing is this: whatever you show somebody, you have to be ready to talk to it. If you show somebody something about some topic or tooling or whatever, those you better be ready to answer questions about it. You know, if you say you are dangerously good at Python, which I've actually seen in an interview before on a resume, that's fine, but just don't get like stumbled up if we ask you, you know, some simple little Python import question, you know, those kind of things. In fact, I think somebody did accidentally trip that guy up and we didn't end up picking him, the one who had dangerously good at Python on his resume. Nothing wrong with being dangerously good at Python if you are, right? So, never fear. Thanks for the subscription. Hopefully this stuff's useful to you. Congratulations on not having to watch ads for another month. That's always nice. Yeah, so portfolios can be done different ways, right? I can show you guys. I have my example resume that I show you guys. Give me 1 second here, real quick. I gotta go find it. It's my Het Tanis resume. Het resume, short, generic. Yeah, and I generalized it so none of this information is directly me, right? Yeah. Don't worry, none of this information is directly me, but this is me. This is actually me. It's just not, you know, if you dial 867-5309, you're probably not going to find me. And you're not going to be able to find that scott.champagne@someemail.com. And then that's me. But then GitHub, it should be easy. Like, that's actually my GitHub. And my engineering labs are on Killer Coda. So, like, those are my little bit of kind of how I show projects, right? And then I come down here, and I think I updated this recently where, you know, I lead with the things that I think are strong that the industry cares about. Then my next strongest things I think are my experience and lead things that I've done. Yeah, I think that's Jenny's mom's number, maybe. The 867-5309. I think there's a song in there somewhere. But anyway, so then, you know, things I've done, and actually this has not been updated because I've left this role. Actually, I've left this role 1, 2, 3. I went back to this role and then left it again since then. So anyways, I am a college professor still. Visiting Professor 3 is still my title at my college, and these are some of my actual classes I've taught. But then down here, for the last 10 years, actually last 15 years, very, very small stuff going on down here. That's not really related to kind of like the bigger stuff up here. That's kind of like all the stuff that I'm doing, right? Anyway, so then down here at the very bottom, these are my actual master's degrees and bachelor's degrees, but I don't have the colleges that I went to on there. So you guys, if you were like, oh, Scott actually, yeah, actually, these are my, why does that say 12? I'm pretty sure it's 2011. I need to go look that up now. Hold on. I need to go look. My wife put my thing on the wall. Hold on. Yeah, my MISM, my Master's of Information Systems Management, is from 2011. So I don't know why that says 2012. But anyway, so this is a dark version of my resume, 1 page. Right? But, and it's not exactly mine, right? Because it's cleaned up or whatever. But yeah, that's how I would show people portfolio stuff. And if somebody, and I've actually heard the criticism before, oh, your GitHub's not very cleaned up. And I'm like, yeah, well, I don't use that for professional projects. That's just my GitHub. You wanted examples of stuff that I've done, and that's where's up there. But like, I don't have my GitHub is not like in the top 5% of like cleanest GitHubs ever. I don't know if you guys have seen, some people use GitHubs like super clean web pages that like link to everything and do like a whole link tree and shit on there. I don't know how to do anything. I'm not gonna spend all that time getting my GitHub that good. That's not where life's going for me. Well, anyways, but back over here. So we were looking, yeah, so this is something, you know, yeah, this was fun. We put high, warning and critical, and then we started to tie alerts into this and take the alerts. While we were doing this, we were taking the alerts and putting them out to the Discord, right? So anyway, so lab on telemetry, you go and you fill out this information, and this could have very much become like part of a project, you know. And then this was Prometheus to Grafana, so it looks a little cleaner. And we were just shamelessly stealing these from the internet. They actually have it's not stealing. They have a whole bunch of these out on Grafana.com that you can just say, hey, we're using a Prometheus node exporter, and it'll show you all kinds of information about your servers, right? Then we did some tracing, and that was that. All right. So, anyways, my point in showing you all that was that was something that I think could be maybe valuable to you. Maybe that's a way that you choose to go learn something. Okay. Where were we at? Next was sys. I don't really use sys, but sys is where you're going to have a bunch of information here. Mostly I will send, I will echo values into sysproc or something like that. But down in here, you've got all these class and system things, right? And you probably don't need to know much more about that than that. Then you got var. Var tends to be, this is actually really annoying. Let's do a df-h on var. Var is just part of root. And you say, how do you know that? Well, I know it's not partitioned off in its own partition like the other ones that I was looking at were, right? It's on with root. So var used to be, you would have like var and var temp and all these things. And these things are still in there, obviously. Look in var, there's var temp. Var temp used to be its own directory as well. A lot of times var temp would be its own. And for the security posture, a lot of times var temp, var, and var log are their own, right? Depending on the security posture you've got. Anyway, so down here, you look at this and you say, okay, that's shared with root. And then you say, what's in here? Well, what used to happen, and this was super annoying on I hated this on Solaris type systems. Solaris was the worst for this. Var temp would wipe every 24 hours. So if you left something in var temp and left the system and came back, it was gone. I used to hate that. I used to really hate that. Nowadays, most modern Linux systems, if you do if you leave something in /temp will clear out in 30 days on Red Hat Enterprise Linux by default. It's every 30 days it clears out. And I doubt that's set up here. It's I think it's down in log.d. Pretty sure it's down in here. If let's just do cat everything. Screw it. Yeah, I don't see anything. Varlog. Huh. Yeah, I don't see anything in this one. But this is Rocky, so Rocky probably removed it. I just catted everything in there because I didn't really care which file it was in. I just want to see if it was there. All right, so then you've got user lib, all of these different ones. And probably the best way I can kind of show you that is by going like this. What if I say which ls? And I said like which, I don't know, which cd, and then like which cat. User bin. All of these user bin is where the binaries for the system users are. There's also a user sbin, which is things like, I think in here you'd get reboot. Yeah, so user sbin reboot. You can also just go down in there and look, but you've got your libraries in here. So your libraries, which are by default 32-bit and your 64-bit. So there shouldn't really be any 32-bit since this is a 64-bit architecture, right? We know that. But then we look at this here and we say, well, what if I wanted to know, like, what is it, LLD, I think is the command? Or I got to go look it up because my brain's not working. Hold on. My brain doesn't ever work when I want it to anymore. Where's this at? Hold on. Ansible. I gotta go look something up because my brain doesn't work anymore. See, true. I want to see when we do. Where's that damn command? Oh, LDD. That. Oh, damn. LDD bash, right? So I do like an LDD. That's fine. We'll do I don't know, cat. What? Oh, we'll do the full path. Sorry, that's my bad. So which bash? Right, and then LDD. I always forget it's not local. All right. So what this does is this shows me all the libraries that are needed for bash to function on this system. And the reason this is so important is like on a modern Linux system, you're just going to have everything working, right? Like you're going to be able to say LDD user bin cat, and everything cat needs is out here, so that's fine. But when we start jailing users and we start jailing processes and putting things down into containers, which is actually just a form of a jail, we start to see this problem where if you don't have this lib64 LD Linux whatever, cat is no longer going to work. You're not going to be able to cat files. And you're not going to be able to ls files if you don't have all these. So if I drop you down in a directory, you know, if I jail you, I have a jail right over here. Let's see, what's in, let's cd to var chroot. In here, if I were to do a chroot to here, and I just get dropped into this environment, I don't have any of these commands anymore. LDD's not even, I don't have any of these commands, and I can exit the jail. And you might say, well, what's the deal with that jail? That jail is how I allow users into my home lab to do the professional Linux user group stuff. Easy Money, you said try cacao power, use it to study as a coffee replacement, just add sugar to drink because it's actually very bitter. Interesting. Yeah. That's, I might have to check that out. I'm just sipping on water right now, waiting for the wife to get done. I think she's in a book club right now. Yeah. Give me a second real quick. Let me make sure the wife hasn't texted me. We're not working too hard tonight, guys. All right. So where are we at here? So again, we're just going down, and I'm just showing these different things. If you're interested, if you're like, hey, can you show me all that Bastion stuff? I have a pretty good little setup on, you know, if you go to our GitHub for Hetanis, the most common thing in here that people work on is the Prolog Labs. We've probably had the most work off of that. But I have one down here, if you're ever like interested in how the Bastion stuff works, it's called Stream Setup. And the thing about Stream Setup is it's an Ansible playbook that goes out and deploys. It deploys a Streamer 1 user that'll be jailed and given only the option of jumping to a server in our environment. In our environment, it's no longer just one server. We let them jump to 19 servers. So if I look in here and cd to, where do I have it? I think it's an etc. It's in bin, even though it's not a bin. If we look at our bastion.sh here, this is actually how I control where all the users are getting sent to. Hey, Root Guy, how's it going? Hopefully this stuff's useful to you.
Deploy this sub to your wallet.
Thanks for the Prime. This is actually a little Bastion trick where I drop you in to that jail. I jail you as a streamer user, and then I let you go jump into any of the boxes. So 1, 2. Last time I checked this, I had errors in it, so I'm going to check it again to make sure I don't have any stupid errors. 8, 9, 10. Yep. Got all those. Good. And then 20 just kicks you out. Yep. Okay. And then if you don't do anything, you have not entered a valid input. You get a joke and you get to leave. And then case is done, and then we exit out. So if you ever jump into my Bastion environment, which super easy to do, it's just here. Now, you need to know the password to it, which is in the Discord. And if you go and connect to that 5 times without the password, you just go and try to bang on that user, you get kicked out forever. Yeah, it's asuscom.com. Anyways, if you needed to know where that was, we have a Word doc on it. We've got a syllabus running around here. I can't find it. Can't find the syllabus. Where's that at? I don't see syllabus here. Damn it. There it is. There's our Prolog syllabus. Anyways, in the syllabus, which is also up in the Discord, free, right? We got a free course going on right now. We're up in Unit 14 of 16. And if you go down in the, this is all the things you're learning. This is what the course is about. These objectives are the things that I want you to know by the time we leave here. And I bet a bunch of you that have been doing it with me, you're like, I can kind of explain the server build and hardware system components. I at least know what they are. And I know how to analyze system security and implement basic hardening because I've been doing that, right? I know a little bit about Docker and Kubernetes, enough to be dangerous, enough to put on a resume if I can talk about it. Anyways, come down here, and those are some of the lab things you need. And this is how you jump into our environment. From the internet, streamer1 at prolog.asuscom.com on port 22, which is the default. You'll hit P01 jump a 1. You'll be jailed as the user streamer, and then you'll jump into the environment. All right. I'm not gonna go jump in there right now, but that's how you get there if you want to. All right. So that was user. Lib is very similar. There's lib and there's lib64. And in here are most of the library. The lib64 is going to be most of the libraries that your system needs, right? So that's what you get with lib. Dev is going to be all of your block devices. So cd2/dev. And now this is where it starts to get a little fun, because in here I see that I've got a bunch of devices in my system. I've got these terminal devices over here. I don't even know what these VCSs are, but I know these XVD systems, these are the ones that are connected as actual disks. And you say, well, how do you know that, Scott? Well, you can do LSBlock. You can do block ID, and it'll tell me about what's there. And then in this case, it's actually funny. Somebody has left XVDC as an ext4, probably from like back in lab 3, and we could clear that. We could wipe that if we want to, right? But as it stands, we've got these. So we can say, well, are they part of the PVS, VGS, LVS? No, they're not part of the logical volume management system on our system. But I can go and start examining these. I can say, so in disk, so CD from dev to disk, and in here I have a bunch of ways to look at disks. So if I were to say like ls-l everything, I just want to look at a long listing of everything in here. This is going to blow up my screen, but don't worry about it. What's going to happen here, right here, I did an ls-l, and in by disk sequence, I find that 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are symlinks to up one directory, XVDC. So if I do a PWD right here, and I were to go from in by dash disk sequence, I were to go up one directory, I would be in dev disk. If I were to go up one directory again, I would be in dev, and then XVDA, B, C. These are all these ones right here. So these are all just references to them. Here, if I had by ID, SR0 is the only one that has an ID. By path, SR0 and SR0 are the only ones that are there as well. And then by UUID, so UUID that's assigned to the disk is this one. So these other ones here actually don't even have, they're not even really connected in any way. So that's kind of an interesting little thing. I see the devices there, but they are not mapped here. Kind of interesting. Let's do something fun real quick. Let's do a PV create on dev XVD. Let's go B. We already have a C over there, so we won't mess with C. And then we'll do an A, and we'll do an E. Now if I do a PVS, I see that those are there, and I do a VGS, there's no volume groups yet. But I can make a volume group from all of those, right? VG create of, let's just call it, lab test maybe. And then we'll add dev xvda, dev xvdb, b, and dev xvde to it. And then I do a VGS again, and now I see that. And if I do a PVS, I see that they are now assigned to a lab test volume group, whereas before they didn't have a volume group. And then now that I have all those volumes, those physical volumes that have been aggregated up into a volume group, now I can carve them down into a logical volume and put a file system on them and then mount them inside of this file system. So I can start to really do a lot of stuff as I start to look at the devices on a system. But when you go into just /dev is what we're talking about here. As we go into /dev, you're looking at the devices that are there. ls block will also help you out. Block ID will also help you out. If you want to know what is mounted on your system, df-h will show you mounted disks and mounted file systems. And I go, this is interesting. These are mounted by something that's off in the network somewhere, right? These are NFS mounts. If I do a mount, and this will check the mount points, and I say -i for opt. Just want to look for opt. I see that opt is an NFS4 read-write file system from what happens to be my Rocky server over here, right? And it's also opt over there, and then I can see, everything that I need to about that. So as we look at this stuff, right, I tell you guys all the time that the stuff that we do is we do simple things well. We need to be able to crawl around in our system and understand things quickly, especially as we're trying to set things up, especially as we're trying to troubleshoot problems in our systems and those kind of things. We need to be kind of, we've done a lot in this administration course where I haven't hammered you guys on this deep stuff like this because I think that that it's just familiarity on the administration side. But as you want to shift over and start doing the engineering stuff, you really need to dig more and more into this and really understand, what are some of these things telling me, or how do I go reference them, right? All right, and you don't have to know everything. I tell you guys this all the time. You don't have to know everything. You have to understand that this is a mount point. You have to understand that it's mounted from somewhere else. And then you have to understand that there's some options that were given to it. There's two ways options can be given. This one could either come from my Etsy FS tab, or if there's a different mount. In this case, I have defaults, which gave the options that were going to be default. And then the other options here that were applied come from the server, because the server is always the one that wins. When there's two options and there's a conflict between the options, the client is always going to defer to the server. Much like if I went over to your house and you said, well, we take off our shoes in this house, and I said, but I don't take off shoes in other people's houses, you would say, well, thank you for coming over, Scott, but it's time to go because we take off our shoes in this house, right? And that's how servers and clients interactions work in systems. They will try to negotiate if you allow them to. Like in this case, it's gonna basically take defaults. But your client will try to take things that it can if you put those defaults here and then change the behavior. Now you can't change this in this system because this is a stateless node. You actually have to change it back to the werewolf, but that's not that big of a deal, right? For the purposes of this, it's fine. All right, the next one is Etsy. Let's clear the screen, CD over to Etsy. Etsy is one of my favorite places for, there's just going to be a whole lot of stuff. Let's see how much stuff. There's going to be 176 items here, so let's LS this real quick. The thing about Etsy is it just has a bunch of your configurations. This is the Etsy directory, or you call it ETC, I guess, if you want, but most people just call it Etsy. And there's a bunch of configurations and things that exist in here that you're going to spend years cursing at and figuring out and those kind of things. But there's, just looking at this right here on my system, some that you're probably going to touch a lot in your career. For sure, the SE Linux. So Etsy SE Linux, and then in there you can change the defaults of your system. You're probably going to do stuff with Etsy FSTab, even though FSTab is kind of going away in favor of CTL mounts. So System D mounts are kind of the way. Oh, I thought it's funny that said CDL. I said System CTL. But whatever. System D is got its own mounting setup. You will definitely deal in Etsy hosts a fair amount. Etsy hosts will be something in big clusters that you deal with. Even if DNS is your preferred method of monitoring stuff. Etsy Scale will be a big thing. If you have a lot of Linux users, right? Let's say you're a Linux administrator. Guys, you're gonna find that being a Linux administrator and a Linux engineer is going to vastly differ where you are. When I was at Lockheed Martin, I had probably like 200 to 300 users on my Linux systems, and they were all like PhDs and master degrees in mathematics and programming, and they were all very, very, very technical and very good at what they did, but they were not the root users. They were using our systems, and we were responsible for maintaining those systems, right? Well, those users, when you have a lot of users, sometimes you need to go mess around in Etsy Scale. Let's go look at what's in Scale. When you look in Scale directory, there's nothing in there. Why the heck is there nothing in there? But then you do an ls-a, and this is the directory in most modern Linux OSs, not all of them, but most of them. For sure all the Red Hat ones. This is where the default profiles populate for new users that come and are made in your environment. So you have some, tool like SSSD, and then Oddjob or whatever different tooling is out there. There's a bunch of tools that can generate like user permissions and allow users to log into your systems. SSSD and IDM are the two big ones now, and they interact with Active Directory and LDAP type systems, right? So anyway, so my point is, users come in and they get a brand new profile, brand new dot files before they go mucking around and changing them. These are the default dot files that they get. Now, when you want to make system-wide changes, you don't go changing these dot files in Etsy Scale. And you might say, well, why not, Scott? Didn't you just say that's how you populate your users' home directories? Yeah, that's true, it is. But here's the thing to know. Your users that are already there do not go back and ever check this directory again from the first time that they're populated. So if you want to change something system-wide, you tend to do it down in something like etsyprofile.d. And etsyprofile.d has a bunch of configurations that are, look, if I do a ls-ld on the directory, this is read, write, execute only by root, readable by everybody, by root's group, and readable by everybody else, right? So people can get in here. But if we do an ls-l on these files, they are not writable by anybody else other than the root user. Only the root user here can write these files. What does that mean? That means that you are, if you call etsyprofile.d, which most of your bash files do by default, you are going to get whatever is in here, whether you're sh or .csh. And you say, well, can you prove that that's something that actually happens to a user? Yeah, I think I can do that. Let's cd into root real quick and do an ls-a. And here in root, if I do more on my .bash profile, I haven't checked this in Werewolf, so I don't know. But this thing goes and it looks for if there's an existence of bashrc, then I source my bashrc file. Okay. Locally. Let's go look at our, bashrc. There we go. So let's go look at our bashrc. And our bashrc starts right here. And it goes and sources, comes down here, sets some paths, and then it goes and sets some aliases. So these are aliases that are unique to root, by the way, so that root's protected from deleting things. Nope, it's not in this one. So what about, it's none of those. Not our bashrc, it's not our C shark, not our profile. I thought it was one of those ones. Oh, wait. Yeah, sorry. We source. Yeah, it was, sorry. I'm being stupid. Right here, I was like, why am I ignoring? Yeah, this is where we check for the existence of bashrc, and then we go look at that. So let's go let's go more etsy bashrc, right? This This is me, guys. You gotta understand. This is me at the end of the day, tired, waiting for the wife to get home, trying to pass on some Linux info to you guys. Down here, so real quick, more. Set your PS1 variable. Set a bunch of things. There's a bunch of stuff happening in here. But one of the things we're gonna see happen here, as we keep going down, keep going down. It is gonna look for. Yeah, look right here. It says 4i in, and it's gonna basically, this is a glob expansion of Etsy profile.d anything.ssh. So real quick, if you want to see what that is, Etsy profile.d anything.ssh. Sorry, sh. I don't know what I'm thinking. So let's just ls it real quick. So this is the only one. Only root can write in that directory. Who can sudo and write? Well, I mean, if you can sudo and become root, then you can do that. So too big to fail. The permissions on a directory, the access control permissions, only look at who the user is. So if you could become root as any other user, you can do all the root things as though you were root. It would almost be like you were wearing a little like mask of me and running around and telling everybody what to do as me. And nobody questioned it because they'd be like, he kind of looks like Scott. If you guys ever saw the first Deadpool movie, remember where he had Wolverine's face stapled to his head? Where are the root permissions housed? So root has all the permissions. Root can do whatever it wants, I guess. Oh, you want to know how? So how do we know like what a user can do? So the permissions of who can become the root user are kept here. You've got a sudoers file, right? Maybe I don't have sudoers in here. Maybe. Come over here. Yeah, okay, so apparently I don't have a sudoers in those boxes, but typically you have like a sudoers. Sudoers. And then in here, this is going to tell you who can assume certain permissions. And typically what happens is you can either assign it directly to a user. So in this case, the root user can run any commands anywhere on the system. That's what all equals all means. The people in the wheel group, the people right here in the wheel group, they have all permissions as well. So if I put you in the wheel group, you would then have the permissions. And if I need to check users, like if I did an ls, let's just cat etsy pass wd real quick and see. All right, so I don't know when I put Fisherman on here, but apparently I put Fisherman in the lab here. Probably was giving him more permissions than he needed. But let's look at real quick. Let's say sudo-l-U for Fisherman. And now Fisherman's not allowed to run things. But what about Scott 2? Can Scott 2 do things? Scott 2 cannot. What about lab user? What about the original Scott? The original Scott user is way up here. That user can do everything. So sudo permissions tend to be how we give permissions to other users or processes to install things. So I actually have a lab that deals with doing sudo permissions and how you check them and how you give all permissions and then how you back it off and that kind of stuff, because I think that is a valuable thing for you guys to know as you're kind of getting into some of this stuff. Look at this. I don't have too much more time, I don't think, tonight. But look, we only got to Etsy so far. We've been talking just file system so far. Hold on real quick. I gotta check see if the wife's coming home yet. All right. We did hit an hour though, so that's good. Go check some other things real quick. Check what's going on in my environment here. checking some other things out real quick. All right. Anyways, okay. So then opt. We don't. So opt directory is an interesting directory. Let's. So so this is a weird environment because this environment uses, if I cd to opt, df-h on opt, you'll see that opt is actually an NFS mount of this system over here. And Werewolf actually has it mounted, and then show mount -e is I am sharing out opt to anything in this direct or anything in this same subnet with me, right? This network that I've got running. And then back over here, I can see that they're all there, and I'm pretty sure that I actually have left this in read write for right now, so that I can do things and run this stuff. Yeah, this is live JOS over on YouTube. I'm just kind of hanging out. I'm hanging out and working. Oh, we're down in opt now. So opt tends to be in most modern Linux. So this /opt directory, this tends to be where we put like third-party applications and like vendor tools and like agents. So that's where I would normally put agents and those kind of things, is down here. Would be in /opt. Okay. What we're doing is we're looking at the CompTIA Linux Plus cert, and not that necessarily people want to go take the cert. We were just starting at the top and just going through and talking about the different pieces of the Linux. So yeah, if you have questions, let me know. JOS, or it could be Joss, I'm not sure. Yeah, we're just hanging out, not working too hard. So that's opt. We talked about bin already. Bin is similar to user bin, and sometimes it is actually, and it is in this case, sometimes it is just its own soft link over to user bin. So /bin in my system doesn't really exist. It is simply a soft link over to user bin. A soft link, or another term for that? Yeah, I just call them soft links as opposed to hard links, right? And then look, there's the link here. You can tell it's a link here, and you can also tell it's a link over here by the fact that it's showing that it's linking to user bin. So if I were to do, so watch this real quick. If I were to do an ls-l and then do a wc-l in bin, oh, if I did this right, in /bin, I should get, sorry, we'll do an ls. 702. And if I were to do that same thing in user bin, what do you guys think the chances are that they're exactly the same? Starwolf said, is there a good book for CompTIA Linux Plus? I don't know. And I'm not necessarily recommending the cert, guys. Like, I'm not necessarily telling you to go take this cert. What I'm telling you, though, is the body of knowledge around it can give us a lot to... I've been talking for an hour and 4 minutes on just this right here. Right here. I haven't even gotten down to S-bin. So, like, there's a lot. But no, I don't know a good book, Starwolf. I would tell you just spend some time, go download that. You can go get the link to this. This is, just out there. And you get the link to this, and then I'm just looking at it in dark mode. It will be in white mode by default, but I'm looking at it. I invert my colors in my stream reader for, like, here's my lab book, and then here's the CompTIA Security Plus one. We can talk about security, too, if we want to. But anyway, so we're doing Linux mostly. So that's bin. And again, bin in my system isn't even its own. It's just a big phony. It's actually user bin, right? And then sbin is the same way. Should be. Sbin is just user sbin. So there you go. And that's useful to know because, if you put something in one, it's really just going in the other. So maybe that determines how you want to actually work things. That probably determines maybe where you path things to. But that also does make it a little simpler in case some of your, some people never get away from, I don't have, which Python 3? So user bin Python 3, but maybe somebody was used to user bin Perl or user bin Python 3. Or somebody was just used to bin Perl and they never got used to it or whatever. Let's one more bash. User bin bash, yeah. most all of you, when you write your shebang line looks like this, right? On most systems. What is bin bash going to read but this? So bin to bash is actually going to go to user bin bash, and you're not going to have any problems. But if this link ever went away, if I ever unlinked bin, my script would stop knowing that it was using bash. Well, it's in bash, so it actually assumes it's bash, but the point is that wouldn't really help you anymore, I guess, if that matters. You will probably not run over that kind of stuff very often in your career, but man, sometimes you'll be working with users, and users will do the weirdest shit, and you'll be like, why did you do it that way? Why is this so busted? And then it's just something or whatever. R Snakeheart over, or AR Snakeheart over on YouTube. Yeah. Hopefully this stuff's useful to you guys. I try to just put stuff out that's good and valuable, you know. And then I tell you guys about our Discord. I haven't even talked about Discord for most of the night. We have a free Discord. You can hang out in there if you guys want. Talk shop with other engineers and architects and that kind of stuff. Josh, you said Perl scripts are flagged as malicious. That's funny. Perl's the first language I cut my teeth on, by the way, guys. Is it called a relative path? Yeah, relative paths or soft links. Yeah. Well, relative path is a slightly different concept. Relative versus absolute pathing is a little bit different concept. That is, in fact, I'll show you some of that in the home directory here in a second. So we did all that sbin stuff. Let's go to home directory. So cd to /home and df-h dot and ls and ls-lh maybe, and now I can see all of the home directories that are in /home. It is incorrect. Listen, guys, it is very incorrect to say that /home is a user's home directory. /home is the street that the users live on. The users live in the home directory /home their username. So like /home Scott, /home Scott 2 up there, /home Fisherman. That is their home directories. But saying like my home directory is in /home is not accurate, because I don't live in the street in front of my house. I don't have like a TV out there and a bunch of, you know, couch cushions and stuff, and I'm not sitting out there in front of my house. Does that make sense? I'm down in the house, which is also reflective. It's also reflective of these home directory permissions. So if you're Fisherman, if you're the user Fisherman, you have read, write, execute permissions to go into your directory. Nobody else, even your group members, do not have access to traverse into your directory, and neither do anybody else in the system. Nobody has access to your system except for you. The X permission set, when you deal with a file system, means traversal. So nobody can even traverse down into the Fisherman directory unless they're that. Yeah, you don't live in the street. That's 100% true. You don't live in the street. /home is the street that you all live on. And by the way, that could be different. That's just the standard. You could move all your users somewhere else. Most of us leave all of our users in /home, but we move home off the system, so home is actually mounted from like an NFS share or some kind of high-speed storage, like some parallel storage somewhere, and then all of our users enjoy the same home directory no matter what system they're on. And that makes a lot of big high-performance compute stuff work better when home directories are shared either in like a Weka or a GPFS or a Lustre type file system. Every word was spelled right there except for Lustre. Lustre is Lustre in the for the Linux side of things. All right, but those are all big high performance compute. What we call globally parallel file systems. Okay, so we got our users, we got our home. What am I thinking here? What else did I want to show you here? So let's cd to, let's go to just home and Scott 2. So Scott 2 has, remember these files came directly out of etsy-skell earlier that we were talking about. And we see when we do an ls-al, A shows all the hidden files, and we're very clever down in the Linux world. We just hide things by putting a dot in front of them, right? We're very, very clever, very, very, very secure, right? Just by putting a dot in front of it. Now, the ls command is actually ignoring it until you do a -a, and then it shows all of them. So now we've got all these hidden things. But we've got these two other hidden things right here, and they are the dot and the dot dot. Now, I'm going to take a quick break, but I'm going to ask in my hourglass, what do you guys think the dot and the dot dot are? Take a quick break here. Do you guys want me to pull up Ranger Cam too? You guys want to see how Ranger's doing? Pull up Ranger Cam for you. Hold on. Where's Ranger? How's Ranger doing? Oh, look at Ranger Dog down there. He's got his little... I think the wife turned his... What? Is that a little cricket crawling across my floor? Man, that's embarrassing. Look at that. There's a cricket down there, and Ranger's not even guarding the house from it. So cricket managed to get in. I was not a Ranger in the Army. No, Ranger is just Ranger Dog. I was an infantryman. I was not a Ranger, though. I think that's the first time anybody's put that together, but no, I was not a Ranger. Yeah, so I want you guys to think about what the CD and the CD dot dot are, and then we'll talk about that here in a second. Not the previous directory, but it does. One of them does mean the current directory, but something else is the dot dot. I'll be back. I'm gonna take a walk, grab some more water. Does anybody get it? I'll come in here and look. YouTube cannot see the Twitch chat, no. Happiest Tree got it right on the Twitch side of things, or on the YouTube side of things. It is the parent directory of the current directory. That is what it is. Let me see if anybody has up a dir. Yeah, up a directory is right. Bacchiotomy, no, I don't really work much with Nagios anymore. I just kind of have this running for fun. I used to monitor all the systems that used to exist, but they don't. I don't have anything around Nagios. Not any direct content. We monitor everything in here with this type of tooling. We use Grafana. We use Grafana in the home lab to check things. And actually, give me a second here. We should be back on 7 days. 7 days is what we normally monitor in this window when we're watching what's going on in the home lab environment. So no, this is my normal home lab right here. All right, so check this out. We were talking about absolute versus relative paths. So let's talk about that real quick. I am in somebody's home directory right here, right? I'm in home Scott2. And this may be easier if I become the Scott2 user and then I say pwd to see where I am. Okay, I'm in home Scott2. I'm in my home directory as the user Scott2, right? Who am I in ID? Will tell me things about myself. Yeah, we're live. Sending grounds. I was asking them about what is dot and what is dot dot, and then I was about to start explaining it as the user. Also, real quick, because sending grounds is here, we were just watching Ranger Cam, and there was a cricket crawling around downstairs, and I'm like, a cricket? What's a cricket doing in my house? And then Ranger just ignored it. He wasn't even. I'm like, Ranger, you should be guarding my house from crickets. We gave you your own Christmas tree. His lights are off, but they were slowly dying anyways. Like, these ones are all dead, and then these ones up here are dead, so... he's got his little penguin. His Linux penguin is on, though. That thing, I think, is like 12 hours on, 12 hours off or something. Anyway, so... I'm the user, and let's find some things out about my user real quick. My user exists in a shell. How do I know which shell? Well, I can say echo... $0. Whoops. Is that right? And whoops. Man, what the hell's wrong with my brain, guys? Echo $. And I'll see the PID, and I can say PSEF grep 12768, and I can see information about the process that I'm in, and then I can even do some stuff like LSOF-P for that process, right? And then that'll show me what this user and what this process are actually using as open files. These are all the open files. Remember those libraries that we were looking at earlier that Bash has to use to be able to run? Here's all this stuff right here. Yeah, Ranger's letting the cricket get a false sense of security. Fair enough. But, we're not going to fire Ranger just yet, even though he's the laziest guard dog ever. But, I mean, he is guarding the house, technically. He's holding some walls up and holding the floor down and, hold down the fort and all that. So, yeah, he's being Ranger. But let's look at something real quick. So we know we're in a Bash shell, right? And if I were to echo shell, Bash will also tell me that I'm in the Bash shell. Now, we learned earlier that very sneakily, if we do an ls-l on bin bash, is that actually bin bash, or is bin actually a link to user bin? So bin bash in our environment doesn't really do anything but go over to user bin bash. Uh-oh, wife's texting me. Give me 1 second here real quick, guys. Then I promise you we'll talk about that. 59th and Glendale. So she's coming up from 59th and Glendale. What food is on the way from there, guys? Somebody tell me. Who knows? Hold on real quick, guys. I'm just doing this. Sorry, she said she'll stop and get food, and I was like, woohoo! There actually is a Panda Express 2 miles north of where she's at, and it is a drive-through Panda Express. So, yeah, so sending, you're right there. Okay, guys, real quick, I want to show you some stuff. So this shell that I'm in has, like, we can do all kinds of things to see about the environment, but really, I want to see something here called Echo Home. So what is my home directory? Well, my home is my home. If I grep Scott from Etsy pass WD, that's where that's mapped from. So home Scott 2 is home Scott 2, and that's how my system knew where to drop me when I came in. This is also how it knew where to go execute my directory from, or my shell from, right? There's all kinds of things that are, little hidden gems that you'll learn as you keep doing this. But then what I want to show you is, so I'm in a directory called home Scott 2, and if I cd to ... I will go up one directory, and if I cd to ... I will go up one directory, which is to say I'm going to my parent directory. So if I cd to home Scott 2 again, and I make dir -p like lab test fun stream or something like that, and then I cd to lab test fun stream, does everybody see that I'm going into that directory? But look at what I left off here. I left off, right, home Scott 2. Does everybody see that? So the question came up earlier about absolute versus relative pathing. And the best way I can tell you absolute versus relative pathing is this. Relative pathing is always relative to where you are, but no, it's better. It's like if I told you right now, hey, can somebody go ahead and tell me where this water bottle is? I got a water bottle. Can somebody tell me where my water bottle is? Well, any of you that could see me, normally I do this with my camera on, any of you that could see me would go, well, Scott, your water bottle's right in front of you. And I go, oh, well, that's good. Where am I at? So to know where my water bottle is from your directions, I have to know where I am. That's how relative pathing works. Now, hold on. If instead you said, Scott, your water bottle is at grid location lat this and longitude that, and I knew exactly, one, I'd be scared because I'd be like, man, this person knows exactly where I'm sitting in my house. And then I could reach out to that exact location. That would be an absolute path to my water bottle. And then I would know where my water bottle is, whether I was in the room with it or not, and whether you knew where I was or not. You could give me an absolute path when you're in Cairo and I'm back in Iraq. You can give me an absolute location when you're sitting in England and I'm down in New Jersey. And it would still take me exactly over here to Phoenix, exactly where my water bottle is. But if you tell me, Scott, your water bottle is right in front of you, we have to know where we are. All right, so watch this real quick. I'm going to cd, and I'm going to use a tilde. And that's going to take me home. Now I'm going to go to the same directory I was still in, but instead of being relative by going like this, I'm going to say home Scott, right? Scott 2. And then I'm going to say lab, test, fun. I'm hitting tab because it's my buddy. And that took me down there. This is an absolute path. Absolute paths always come off of the root of the file system. Always. There's no exception. They will always be right no matter where you are, no matter how lost you are in your file system, no matter how unable you are to get back home. You are always only, there's 3 commands that'll get you back home no matter what. You can cd by itself, and that'll take you home. You can cd dash to go back to where you were. Then you can cd to $home, and that will always take you home. And then you could also cd back to there, and you can also cd to tilde, which will also always take you home as well. And guys, we need to get Sending Grounds streaming more. So if you're on the Twitch side, make sure you pressure Sending Grounds into streaming more, so we can get him coming on and showing us his rock climbing and his Linux skills. So, what are we doing? Hold on. I got this super annoying thing always pops up, so I can't read people's messages. Give me a second here. I gotta wait for this thing to go away so I can go read. Yeah, that's great description. Used to teach similar in World Geo class. Absolute location is geo. Relative is based on context. Yeah. Like, Bobby Tom, when I was in the Army, like, some people can't figure out how to do shift from a known point, right? Like, Shifting from a known point requires you to know where you are. If you don't know where you're at, you're not going to be able to call for fire on a known point or on another point. So we would take, like, I know where that hill is on the grid, and I can shift 500 yards to whatever direction. It takes super simple trig that you should be able to do on your fingers. But I said trig. Like trigonometry? Okay, yeah. Anyways, it's not super hard to do, but... Yeah, if you mount something over a directory, that's kind of like a poor man's way of hiding things. And yeah, you can't access what's in a directory. Not on that system. You can't access something that's got something mounted over the top of it. No. You will see that there's a missing amount of space, and you will even see a missing amount of corresponding inodes, but you will not be able to access it because there won't be a path there. You can layer mounts on top of things. It's just a really bad, really bad industry practice. Don't do it. And it's a really bad, like, from a security standpoint, it doesn't really actually help you because anybody worth their salt doesn't actually look forensically at your system from a running perspective. They look at it from a file system perspective, so they don't even care, you know, how it was. So, yeah, Happiest Tree. If you have questions that you want to ask on Discord, please do. People love answering stuff down on there. R Snakeheart, you said there's a special way of assuming current path in scripts. Yeah, you can set the current path. You can set, most people set like a working path, which will be like down in somebody's home. Yeah, because if I write a script in here, right? Let's say I go back here and I write a script, and in my script, I always just assume that you're in this path. I write absolute pathing everywhere. That's the way my script works, and my script's great. But my script can't go to anybody else's home directory because nobody else is in home Scott 2, and I used absolute pathing. So a lot of times what people will do, yeah, they'll take like relative to whatever your home directory is or relative to whatever path you kick it off from, and then for the rest of like the installer script or something, it'll use that as a it'll prepend anything that it does off of that. Some, and I know Oracle is guilty of this. Oracle, who is a huge company that's worth hundreds of billions of dollars, Oracle is 100% guilty of this. Every single one of their installers tries to install out of temp/tmp. And you say, are you sure of that? I'm sure of that as of a few months ago, yeah. Because I was still having to go back and fix. Because when you do STIG and CIS benchmarks, one of the things you do is you always put temp on its own. And then one of the things you always do is you give it no exec, which I think might be set here. Do I have temp? I don't have temp on its own here. I definitely have some things in my environment stigged, but I don't know. I don't know what I have set like that. No, shoot, I don't know where I have it. I'm terrible, guys. I have stuff just left all over in my lab, and I don't know what is hardened. Anyways, the point is you put a no exec on /temp and nothing execs out of there no matter what you do, and that's what they do, and it just breaks everything. But all right, anyway, so yeah, so I'm down in here, and I just wanted to show you guys a little bit more. So I'm down in this directory. I cd to .. Where's that going to take me? Up one to the parent directory. So even if it's an empty directory, I'm in an empty directory right now. If I do an ls-al, I will always see at least 2 directories. And they are the local directory, that's the dot, and they are my parent directory, which is .. So let's prove that to ourselves real quick. Let's say ls-ld dot, that is this directory, and I'm going to cd up one, and I'm going to do an ls-ld dot here, and what I should see is this permission right here, because it was the parent of the directory I was just in before I went up one. So now when I went up one, yes, this matches the permissions of my parent, if you will, if that makes sense. When I was down in the lab directory, my parent directory was home Scott 2, which is right there, right? So you don't, here's the thing, you guys don't have to memorize and move around directories and you know, that kind of stuff all that much. I mean, you have to be able to traverse a directory in general to do Linux admin work, but you don't have to like memorize all the minutia of all the things I just said. You have to know how to move around. So I want to go up a couple, maybe 3 directories. Boom. But instead of doing that, guys, I could have. So I'm down here. I could have just, really, I could have done this if I wanted to. That would have taken me there. That is still a relative path, but it's relative to my home directory, which I knew was this, right? And then people get all kinds of like fancy with this stuff, right? So let's go back to where we were. People get all kinds of fancy. They'll do stuff like, well, I don't know any fancy stuff, so that's it. I'm all out. I'm all out of fancy stuff. I just know how to do my stuff. Oh, what I was gonna say though is you can you could also have went home, Scott, to lab, right? But what you couldn't do from here is you couldn't CD to lab. Does it make sense that if you're sitting in your office or you're sitting in your gaming room, wherever you're listening to me from, does it make sense that you can't just open the fridge from there? I mean, I got a little fridge in here, but I'm saying like it makes sense that you're not like, the pop D and being able to pop the stack and go like 7 back. I don't even remember 7 directories ago, right? But the point is, you can't. People do all kinds of things. The only popping of the stack I do is this. I can CD back and forth like that. That's always the last one. That's the only one that I know that works pretty good for me most of the time. In fact, when I do Ansible and I go down in roles, you'll see me do a lot of the CD dash to jump down into my roles and back out, because it's easier for me to do the execution that way. But actually, I really should just use like absolute paths, and then it wouldn't matter. But all right, so that's kind of how those permissions work. Look, we weren't even on. We didn't even get to that. We were still just over here on home directories. Media, we don't really use media much. I doubt media's even here anymore. It is still there. A lot of times you would just mount things in here. So if you had CD-ROMs or USBs, they would automatically mount into /media. And typically you would find that out just by mounting something. You would find where it went, and it would be like media CD-ROM or media like USB. You could also manually mount things. Typically I manually mount things into /MNT. This is where, if you ever come onto one of my systems, Mr. Crum, you said, what's the difference between /SRV versus opt? I've never seen /SRV, but I've always used /opt for third parties and third-party tools and agents. That's what I use in opt. Any third-party stuff that's not being maintained by the OS and any agents go in my /opt directory. And that's held pretty strong my whole career as far as like kind of like a standard that most everybody adheres to. There's nobody going to come in and lock you up if you don't do that. I'm just saying that's where, like, if I go into somebody's brand new system and I'm just like poking around and they've asked me to like help them with something, I will look for agents and opt. Agents and third-party tools will be down there typically. Is that universal? I think it's a pretty common standard, but I wouldn't say it's like 100% universal, but it's definitely common. But I haven't used /SRV. Some people might use that for other reasons. I don't know it, unfortunately, though. All right. /root. /root is root's home. So typically you have 3 types of root that you deal with as a Linux user and Linux administrator and Linux engineer. So you need to be able to identify the 3 different types of root. You have a root user. Oh. Well, let's go back to, we have a root user. I'm root. And then I CD to root. That is my home directory. That is root's home directory, right? And then you have one last other type of root, which is the root of the file system, which is right there. I'm sure /serve works or is there, but I've never used it. What if you put it in user bin instead of opt? Believe it or not, straight to jail. Yeah, I need to get one of those. I have all these other ones. I have all these other fun ones, but I don't have straight to jail. This is one of my favorite ones. I can answer that for money. It's one of my favorite ones in all the world right there. All right, let me get rid of that. Oh, man. All right, all right. Where are we at here? Slash temp again. Slash temp is cd temp and df-h dot. Did I put it on its own? No, it's part of the root of the file system. So this is not a hardened image in that sense, in that it doesn't have all of its own partitions or those kind of things. Temp tends to get, if it is on its own, we will mount what's called no exec and no SUID. Hold on, what's the way fast for me? She asked if I wanted jalapenos on my sub, and I always respond to her as, man, this is old. This is like from 2003. This is old. Maybe even 2002. I always respond to her as a Napoleon Dynamite, and I say, yes, gosh. But it's in text, so she has to read it out loud like that. She has to say, yes, gosh. So she'll ask me if I want something. I'll be like, yes, gosh. But she's coming. Oh, sending, you're around. You were around for this. You're a little. You and Fisherman are both a little younger than me. But you guys remember Ready to Rumble, right? Remember the movie Ready to Rumble? It's Scott Conn and David Arquette. It's from the year 2000, I believe, and it's where's 99? It's one of those two, and it's they're like wrestling fans. They're big wrestling fans. Anyways, I was making the wife watch it last night with me, so she's been having a good time. She didn't think it was funny at first, and then I caught her laughing a few times. I'm like, this movie's funny. Watching Dave Arquette lose his shit is pretty funny. He actually does a pretty good job as a insane wrestling fan. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, it's fun. It's fun. Sending Grounds. It is. It's real fun. And then the guy, I don't remember all their names in it, but it's pretty good. It's called Ready to Rumble. You will find it. It'll be Scott Conn, who's the son of James Conn, and that's Caan, yeah, and then Caan. Scott Conn is his son, and David Arquette. So it's called Ready to Rumble. Yeah, you guys should keep an eye out for it. I think it's on Amazon right now for free. So I'm gonna make the wife finish it tonight when she gets home. The wife's calling me. Hold on. Hey, what's up? Sure. Yellow. Oh no, gosh no. Yep, loves you. Bye. Sounds like a retcon. The king! Crown us, king! Crown us! And he's like, get out of here! And I think he like kicks him over. But like, they basically watched their favorite wrestler fall, and then the whole movie is trying to get him back. Yeah. She had to call my wife of many years now. Well, maybe not so many, but many years to me. Had to call me to ask me if I wanted not brown rice, but brown mustard or yellow. And I'm like, have you ever seen me grab brown mustard in all my life? Anyways, I didn't tell her that. I just said yellow, but. All right. So we did all of those. Now we're looking at the CompTIA Linux Plus because I tell you guys all the time, even if you're not going to go take the cert, nobody's telling you to go spend money and do certs. What I'm telling you is there's a body of knowledge around these things that is very useful. When I was even looking at this earlier, I'm like, I could probably go brush up on my SED. I haven't used SED so much. Yeah, it does cover some of that stuff. Joss asked, does the Linux Plus cover more Debian and app stuff, or does it? Yeah, it covers all that. So watch. I'm just looking at a lot of this stuff. We were even covering some of this stuff earlier. We were creating logical volumes, and then MDADM. A lot of this stuff maps back to, not even intentionally, but stuff that we've done in our Linux Systems Administration course. Give me the monies for Heck Gauntlet cert. Yeah. So like, yeah, they do have. Where was it? Yeah, package management, DNF, Yum, apt, RPM, dpackage, and zip or zipper, right? I don't even know snapd, flatpak, or I know app image a little bit, but then understanding kernel updates versus package updates. I just think that if you were gonna say, hey Scott, how how do I know? So you come to me and you say, Scott, how do I know I'm ready to go get a Linux systems admin course? I'm gonna, people are always asking me for a little bit of my time. I tell you guys, if you catch me down in like one of the channels and we're hanging out and we're not doing anything, and you want to ask me to like do something or review something with you, I will absolutely do it as long as everybody else can hang out, right? Like I will do any of that stuff for you guys. I'm fine with that. But if you said, hey Scott, what would let me know that I'm ready to go take the interview? And I would say, if I was going to try to get into systems world now, again, I kind of fell into the Linux world from the networking world. I was a network engineer for a long time. I did firewall engineering and Wi-Fi engineering for a big school district, and I planned things and deployed things and did all that stuff, and I didn't love it, so I moved over to Linux, right? I did a really cool couple of things with Linux that were just like kind of like side projects, but saved our school district a lot of money. And I was like, this is really cool. I could just use this open source tool, and it was like they were like, the first one was like a SOCKS 4 proxy. If you guys remember SOCKS 4 back in the day, back before people were using Squid proxy for it. In fact, I haven't even ever set up Squid proxy. I need to learn how to do that. But the back in the day, like SOCKS proxy was the way to go. And I set up things on there and did all kinds of, and there was just all kinds of like valuable things that I think my networking helped me to learn quickly. But anyways, where I'm going with this is, if you said, Scott, I want to get into Linux, and I would probably just sit you down again in front of everybody, because like I tell you guys, my wife would get mad if I gave everybody all my time. But if we're just hanging out and doing whatever, I'll talk through this. And I would just say, okay, let's go look at this page here. And I would say, can you talk to me for a few seconds? Just give me like 30 seconds on what DevNull is. What does /DevNull mean to you? And then you could tell me about it, or you could say, I never even heard of DevNull. Don't know why I'd use it. And I'd go, okay, well, that doesn't bode well. Let's go on. What's /dev0 or /dev/urandom? Where might you use either of those? Now, that's a little more complex question, because there's different reasons to use both of these. But like I've shown you guys if I'm trying to write for disk speed, I will go pull dev0s off the processor. But if I am trying to figure out how well the processor handles load, I'll do dev/urandom to be able to spin up the processor. But I wouldn't use dev/urandom to write data onto a disk, because now I've got a second set of variables about how fast my disk writes are happening, right? And I don't want that. I want just dev0. So if all that's confusing, don't worry. That's like in courses that you can go look at in our Discord. Everything's free in our Discord, guys. There's nothing that I've ever charged anybody for down there. Don't ask Fisherman, though. If you ask Fisherman, Guybro, or his bot, it'll charge you. I'm just scaring some of you guys away, I'm sure. But no, Fisherman does maintain the bot, and the bot is a jerk. But the bot's job is to be a senior Unix admin. So if you ask it questions, it will bite your head off like a senior Unix guy will. So that's kind of funny. One of our little proclivities of our server. But anyways, yeah. Then I would come down here and I say, okay, how do you tell me when a file was last changed? Do you guys know there's like, I can see right on this page multiple ways to tell when a file was last changed. Hold on, so let's do this. Touch, are we in temp? Yep. Touch some file. And then I do an ls-l on some file. There's a date here. There's a time and a date there. And that's the last time the file was changed. But you also have stat temp some file, right? And this will tell me when it was last accessed, when it was last modified, and when it was last changed. Then there's also, what was another one? Oh, you could do file on it, right? And it'll tell me that's just an empty file. Do strings do it too? Strings will tell you about, strings. I don't know what I'm doing. Strings will tell you if something's executable, right? Yeah. So there's like multiple things. So again, like somebody might just ask you that on an interview. They might just be like, well, how do you know when a file was last changed? How do you know that the file was the same file that got pulled over from another system, right? Well, if the time it was first created is the same as the last time it was changed, it hasn't changed since it landed on your system. But if this is anything else, now you've got something to go look at. right? So there's a whole bunch of things to think about over here. You know, they're just asking you for stuff like, do you know how to move files around? Do you know how to now take this sum file? So I'm down in here with sum file. Can I move sum file from a relative path here over into home Scott 2 lab, right? Didn't he have like a lab? Could I put it down in here? And then if I ls-l in that directory, right? It's owned by root still. Can I change that ownership, which I don't even think they have here, but they have elsewhere? Can I change the owner to Scott 2 and Scott 2 of some file, so that now when I check it again, it's usable by that user owner? LS also lets you specify a timestamp. Yeah, I think LS can tell you, it can check modified, or sorry, it can check. Everything will update access. So when something's read, you'll get access updates. There's actually tooling that you guys can go and mess with called iNotify, and iNotify can track when a file changes. Create is a true create for most FS. Fair. But if I just want to know the last change, that's the one that's the most accurate, by the way, guys. A file system of different types, if it is POSIX compliant, if it's POSIX compliant, the one thing that it will always have of all these, in whatever operating system I've ever run for my whole career, it will always be able to tell you the last modify, the last time it changed. It'll always be able to tell you that. Now, yeah, the other things I'm not 100% sure on, but I can always tell you if that thing was modified newer than like a source file or something on like my, maybe I have like a read-only NFS share that comes in and systems pull down and then configure themselves or something. I use Ansible for that a lot. Like I'll pull down the configs for the environment that I'm in, and I'll use the system to build itself with an Ansible run locally. And if I want to check that config file is, you know, the same, well, I do other things too. I also check some things like ck-sum, right, sum file. I can, ck-sum, I'm not in that directory. You guys got to help me out sometimes here. Right, and then I can see the checksum of that file even though it's 0 length, right? And if the file's changed in any way, right? Any change in that file in any way will change the entirety. It is called a cascading difference of it is a cascade because there's no way to tell how much something's going to change. All good hashes that are not broken yet are cascading hashes. Checksum's not really a hash, it's just a checksum of the file and metadata. But anyways, all right. So yeah, so you can come in here and then I might say, you guys ever seen the really funny XKCD about tar command? Nobody ever knows how to use tar command. The reason tar gets people is because it's in reverse. The last thing that you put on the line of a tar file is the very last thing you put on the tar file line is the target directory, and then before that you put the thing that it's going to create. And that's what gets people, because instead of being from here to there, it's kind of like from there to here. Right? Like it's kind of weird. Tripwire is great. Joss, I was telling the guys, Tripwire hasn't been updated, I think, since like 2017, last I checked. That might not still be true. How's Ranger doing? Ranger's just laying around. Tripwire. Their GitHub, I don't think it's been updated. Maybe it's 2018. When was it last updated? Oh yeah, look at that. Look at that. Nobody's been doing nothing on it. Open source Tripwire. But I could see some interesting stuff. I imagine people are doing some fun stuff with this. Yeah, I remember I had students building Tripwire back in like the early 2000s in a college class. Anyways, it's all there. You guys can go play with it. How's Ranger doing? He's doing good. I got a guard on Ranger. My mic is all static? Shouldn't be. I mean, that's not good. Oh, it's just you. Okay. I was gonna say I can transition. That was helping a little bit the other day. Yeah, Tripwire's good. Tripwire uses like an IO wait type thing. All right, down here, can you partition disks? Can you do this, guys? I made you guys do this all in Unit 3 of the Linux Systems Admin course. You guys even did MDADM and proc MDStat to see how your RAID was doing. So you guys did a lot of this stuff in there. You guys did FDisk. I use FDisk mostly. DF and DU, LS block, LS SCSI, FC stat. Oh, I don't even use FC stat. Hold on. What provides FC stat? Is it in one of these directories? What? DNF, no match found. Okay, yeah, FC. I don't know what FC stat is. I don't, I'm not familiar. I don't know if any of you guys have ever played with it, but block ID, LS block, lots of good disk related things going on in here. You remember playing KOTH boxes on, is that Try Hack Me? Control is chatter, which removes the execute bit for the file permissions. Yep. Mr. Crumbs, I mean, yeah, you can change other attributes of files that are kind of hidden sometimes. Is there a reason to raid virtual disk groups? Well, you can treat anything that's presented to your operating system as a RAID if you want. I guess there's diminishing returns and probably less value from it for certain things. Most of the time we do hardware layer RAIDs far abstracted away from our systems, and our systems simply mount a mount point. And then that mount point is back-ended by... Man, Weka is using... Look, let me show you guys. So I'm always telling you guys about this new file system that I've been using. Weka... RAID structure. I'm working on some of these systems, and it's an 18+2 RAID. Man, Weka's wild. They are a powerhouse. Oh, let me go see if I can see. So they got some of their stuff here. They talk about how it connects in, and Weka uses it. It actually, you have to lock at least 4 of your CPUs to it, which is a lot for somebody unless they've got, some of the nodes I'm on are many hundreds of CPUs. But hold on, I want to see if I can find their... See if we can see their RAID. Such as RAID, are compromised. So they talk about here how RAID is internal replication and erasure coding compromised between scalability, protection, capacity, and performance. And in this case, they don't keep the data or metadata locally. They write it to 3 stripes across all of their different systems. So look, like they say, configurable data protection levels from 4+2 to 16+4. I'm actually on a system that's I thought it was 18+2, but they're saying 16.4. But this could be an older version because I'm highly confident that I saw 18+2 the other day because I was making documentation for the system. I was training people on it, and we were using Weka as the backend. So I'm highly confident it was actually 18.2. But the point is, you have this massive stripe, and each one of these, this is wild. This is like kind of, if any of you guys ever use Hadoop FS, and every device brings its own storage. That's kind of what Weka is doing, as each of these are like their own systems, and it's kind of wild. And they talk a little bit about their performance. Minimum supported cluster is 6, which allows for 2 full virtual spares for rebuild. A 4.2 configuration. The bigger Weka cluster, the bigger stripe size it can support, and the greater storage efficiency and write performance. Yeah, we're on an 18+2, and each of those are beefy boxes with a whole bunch of disks in them. And I think each disk is a 5. I think each disk in those is a 5 terabyte SSD. So it's wildly fast, and it's massively scalable. I have some of those are in the we've blown past petabytes on some of these systems, so not on each individual system, but in the aggregate. So Rating at a virtual layer versus the hardware. Yeah, I mean, I could still like rating up in software is typically considered kind of slower, but it's not considered slower. It is slower, and also rating at the software tends to be less reliable, and most of them that would do that don't support helping you with the recovery, whereas like a hardware raid probably would. So like as far as if you had to go to a vendor and get recoverability, so that's why I would not do it except for in a. I've never played with Unraid. I don't know what that is. It all costs money. I don't know what that is. I don't know what Unraid is. Is that a probably a cool tool? Never played with it. It's proprietary. I bet some of you guys don't like that. Where's Fisherman? Fisherman will start fighting you if you tell him it's a proprietary Linux. He'll be like, what? By Lime Technology? Users of the software are encouraged to write stuff for a closed source proprietary tool? I don't know about all that. Well, it doesn't say it's closed source. That does say it's closed source here. But there's open source components. Well, that's a problem. We'll give 275 later. Gateway, router, firewall software. I have had was it open? pfSense? pfSense has been pretty good to me. You guys might be surprised to know that in my home lab I actually just I wrote my own Bastion. So my Bastion's up on my GitHub. I show you guys how to set it all up. So I just Bastion things and let people in. Yeah, you can use FreeNAS. There's another free tool called it's like a girl's name. Is it Alice? Somebody help me out here. I think it's called Alice. Simon, you said, man, need your skills to get my AMD GPU recognized on an Ubuntu system so I can start running a local LLM. Yeah, Simon, if you ask about that down in our Discord, we've got some home lab, and people, I try to chew on some of that stuff. So if you have any info on it, if you have any versions or anything you can send. In our, typically, you go like home lab, or yeah, typically home lab is where people drop that kind of stuff. These all got moved around the other day and it bugs me so much, but they're alphabetical now, so I guess that's cool. Guys, I gotta go. The wife's here. I gotta get off. Let's go find somebody to raid. I appreciate you guys coming by. I will hop back on tomorrow and we will talk a little bit for people that want to hang out. And let's go find somebody to raid over on the Twitch side of things. Let's see. Oh, Sid's on. We're gonna go raid Sid because I like when he yells. So I will see you guys. Cassandra's a database, but that's. I'm thinking. No, it is. I mean, that was a good thought. I just don't know. No, there's a different one though for the file systems. But Cassandra is a good database though, so that was good. All right. I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care.